Requiem aeternam, dona Domine. Et lux perpetuo lucea The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus exclaimed, I bless you, Father, Lord of heaven and of earth, for hiding these things from the learned and the clever, and revealing them to mere children. Yes, Father, for that is what it pleased you to do. Everything has been entrusted to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, just as no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened, and I will give you rest. Shoulder my yoke and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Yes, my yoke is easy, and my burden light. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The commemoration of the faithful departed on the day following All Saints' Day is a natural outgrowth from gut reactions in the people of God over the centuries, but it is progressive in its development. Even St. Augustine recommends that there should be a time outside the memorial date, the anniversary of the individual soul. It would be good to remember them all together. Remember how actually he in his Confessions has this passage about his dying mother, who in the end insists only on one thing as she is petering out, not where her body should be placed, but that they should remember her at the altar. And of course, we have in the old Roman canon the pause at which that is done. Names can be put there. The development was accelerated by the important Cluniac movement, the French Benedictines, who had a very elaborate liturgy, and they were ordaining a lot of monks, but only ad missam, for the Mass itself, giving them the faculties only for that. And that practice actually has continued in the Solemn congregation, and in many of the abbeys there are still a lot of celebrations, even on a daily basis. Fongombo and the daughter houses, for instance, do not have concelebration normally. They have all the priests celebrating individually, which means therefore that there is an effect also on the development of church architecture in the monastic world. One sees it in France, one could see it actually in our own abbey there in Italy. These protruding parts of the apse, where little chapels come out, semicircular formations there, and there would be an altar in each. And I remember in France these were being used on this day, and they were glad to have a novice to serve in the night. A lot of celebrations happens on this day throughout the church. So, under an impact there coming from one of the great abbots of Cluny, it was this day that became the standardized day, which would make a lot of sense, following All Saints, and it spread. The feast spread to Rome in the 14th century, and in the 15th century the Dominicans had the custom of celebrating 3 Masses. Now, we remember the shock that the world had at the time of the Great War, when in a short time great chunks of the youth of the countries lost their lives. They said that in England the flower of the nation was lost. Those trenches were something else. And in the heart of the war, in 1915, the Pope of the time, Benedict XV, troubled by this very large number of souls suddenly going on to the other side, without people to pray for them perhaps as they needed, he allowed a 3rd celebration, and that has continued to this day for all the priests of the Church. The Mass also received a proper preface taken from the Parisian Missal of 1738. But since the liturgical reform in 1969, the emphasis of the liturgy for this feast is on the Paschal Mystery, and for that reason the sequence Dies Irae was dropped, although we maintained it in the monastery at the monthly Mass of the Dead, which we sang in black, and it is very powerful, ancient and moving, and comes from the heart of the Middle Ages as a cry for help when death was always very close. One thinks of the bubonic plague. The second Mass is for an intention that one cannot receive a stipend for, and so one receives one stipend, and then one offers a second one for all the faithful departed. So that's a massive help for the Church. And if one celebrates a third one, that is applied precisely for this intention that was given in 1915, ad intentionem Summi Pontificis. And that intention is actually linked with the spoliation of Masses, because many Masses were lost in the great revolutions in France and other countries, the spoliation of church goods, and therefore out of justice these could be recuperated by this third one if one offered a third one on this day. The big difference now is that it is expected that they not be celebrated one after the other, but at different times in the day. In Italy, at this period of the year, the whole of the country was in movement because families got together and people went back to the roots. The graves are still stable points, and they were looked after, and often there would be a light burning at them and even a picture on them. And on the previous day in community we were told by the prior where we would be celebrating as priests the following day, because there were a lot of celebrations to ashore, and they would be also in cemeteries. There are still chapels in cemeteries in Italy. And there were always moments to pause. Indeed, one thing that we were taught in France was that as one prayed for the dead, which one did a lot in the monastic life, the office of the dead we still had at Selignac once a week, it was Hodie mihi cras tibi, today for me, tomorrow for thee. And we do hand on the torch of life as in the Olympic Games from one generation to the next, and one generation prays for the one that has gone by. However, there is a danger now that that will not continue. I did hear in France that they hadn't got what we can take for granted still here in Ireland and also in Italy. Stipends always coming in. That's a huge loss of faith. The first gratitude that we should show to our parents and grandparents is to remember them in prayer, not to take things for granted. After all, life is actually fairly short, and this day is a time to remember that. I remember our next door neighbours on one side back in Wales, they were around the 100 mark, they were very old. Both as deaf as a post, but they nevertheless loved each other a lot. And one day he said to me, well, we start the day in bed reading the Liverpool Daily Post, and we look at the births, marriages and deaths, and if we don't find our name in there, we get up. Now, even good Dr. Pritchard and dear Lynette, his wife, have gone into the beyond. Neighbours. It is our hope that we will also one day be neighbours to our neighbours in the long home of heaven. Domine Jesu Christe, Rex Memoriae, libera animas omnium fidelium defuntorum, de penis inferni, et profundo lacum, liberae deore Deonis, de absorbe ateas tartarus, ne carant in obscurum, sed significa sanctus Michael, representate in crucem sanctam, quam anima prae promisisti, seminius, ostias et preces, tibi Domine, laudis oferimus, tuus oscive, pro animamus illis, quarum hodie memoriam facimus, Pacis Domine, de morte transire ad vitam. Quam anima prae promisisti, et in